Presiding officer, there was nothing unreasonable when fishermen voted to leave the common fisheries policy in 2016. When I came here in 2001, the EU was halving the number of Scottish fishing boats, while simultaneously funding Spaniards with our money to expand their fleet. We now see a rise in foreign vessels' catches in our waters, a huge proportion, more than half. It's one of many reasons to be out with the common fisheries policy. An arrangement, of course, that the SNP has opposed from the very outset to the present day. Now, on the 17th of January 2017, Theresa May spoke about her plan for Britain, addressing what she thought should now happen after the referendum. It had a single mention of fishing, a mention of Spanish fishermen. No mentions of English fishermen, Irish fishermen, Welsh fishermen, or Scottish fishermen. Only a mention of Spanish fishermen, tucked away right at the end, immediately before the conclusion of her speech. Now, this continues a line from the Tory sellout of fishermen on entry to the EC to today, and to Section 75 in the political declaration, which reads, and I quote, "Within the context of the overall economic partnership," let me repeat that, "within the context of the overall economic partnership, the parties should establish a new fisheries agreement on, inter alia, access to waters and quota shares." So we know from that quote, encapsulated in Section 75 of the political declaration, that a fishing agreement is contingent on an economic partnership. There's a trade-off going to be made against fishing rights. Optimists believe, against all the evidence so far, that the UK Tories will abandon an economic partnership in favour of fishing, or will show some miraculous adoption of a negotiating strategy far superior than anything that we've seen to date. They simply don't encourage me, and if you track what's been happening on social media, you will know that many fishermen are not buying it either. Presiding officer, the history also gives us much to say about what has happened. Mike Rumbles quoted Edmund Burke, and he did so appropriately. The Gettysburg Address that Abraham Lincoln gave in 1863 made clear what happens when a country fights itself. The same is true when a political party fights itself, as the Conservatives are now doing. It's not a war that can be won without casualties. It's probably not a war that can be won at all. Ross Greer talked about the dying days of a Tory government. I think he was wrong. We're actually facing something more serious. For democracy, and for my many friends on the Conservative benches here and elsewhere, we're potentially witnessing the death of the Conservative Party. That is a party which went through huge trauma in 1846, when Robert Peel addressed the issues of the Corn Laws, and the Tory party fissured. It took many decades, lives, before the Tory party came together. This time, one cannot be certain in any way, shape or form that the Tory party will survive at all. And politics is diminished if we do not have a diversity of voices. And I think one of the losers in this whole sorry farrago is the democratic system itself. Now, let me just address the issue of why I think the Tories are dying as a party. I have before me advice that's given to people who work in a hospice on how to recognise death. Someone who's dying usually begins to withdraw more and more into his own world. Sounds like the Tories. She or he is still conscious and able to communicate, but various behaviours may appear. Restlessness, disinterested in people or activities previously enjoyed. There is a decreased ability to grasp ideas. That sounds like the Tories. All the senses decline, even hearing. And if there's one sense the Tories are losing, it is an ability to hear what the public domain is saying, what the political domain is saying. And ultimately, we hear the death rattle of a party on its last legs, heading for the grave. If I'm allowed, I will.
Okay, Mr. Reddy.
Yeah. Before he gets any more morose, can I bring him back to the present day? How does he think we're going to get out of this situation? Does he think that a people's vote is gaining traction? Do you think it could happen? And do you think he'll really get behind this proposal so we can win it?
Very briefly, Mr. Stevenson.
We've had that subject already. For my part, I would prefer to see us have a relationship with the EU that is of Norway. That's economically valuable, and it gets us out of the CFP. Presiding officer, I'm very obliged for the opportunity to speak. Fishing will remain a dominant issue for me, as for many of my constituents, and we will continue to hold the Tories to account. You can't trust them on fishing.